Beverly here. Thank you for listening to the morning show. Shannon Mallory is here. Good morning, Shannon.
Good morning, Beverly. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
It's a tiny bit chilly, but not as chilly as it has been,
You know,
so it's fine.
I mean, as soon as it gets past about 38 or 40, my coat's off, and I go out. I wear a vest sometimes, but yeah, sleeveless.
Yeah. The other day, I was walking around in just a long sleeve T-shirt. Yeah. And it was 37, and
right.
I was like,
"Whoa!" At that point, when it was like,
you're like, "Oh, this is
degrees.
mild." We're getting used to it, unfortunately. Yeah.
I know some people that come from Minnesota in different places, and they think our winters are just nothing. They just walk around in T-shirts, so they don't have any coats, so they're used to it.
But then there's always that guy that wears shorts all year. Oh, it's not that cold.
People. Well, your legs, they're not so bad. They don't get frostbite, but everything else you got to cover up. And
speaking of it getting, there you go.
Speaking of the cold.
You were leading us into it, Beverly. That's
go.
a professional over there.
Well, we already gave them a little teaser.
Yes.
What we're going to talk about if they were listening earlier. Yeah. So,
speaking of cold, Canada geese are probably migrating along with a lot of our other migratory birds. And, well, one of the most common animals that we get complaints about at OSU Extension across the state is either nesting pairs of Canada geese in a place that they aren't supposed to be, or that you don't want them to be.
And they get aggressive when they're nesting.
Yes.
Very aggressive.
They're protecting their nest,
you think they might want food, and then when that head goes down.
Yeah, guys, if you didn't know this, when I was a little kid, my dad would ask me, what sound does a goose make? And it was hiss. Because
they do. See, I grew up, my cousins had geese, so I know we had to run from them things occasionally. But anyway, they're nesting, and they are a problem. That's their home once they get there.
Right. They get very protective of that spot. So the first thing we're going to talk about is nesting pairs, and this is going to be upcoming in March and April. Okay. March and April usually is about the time they nest. They can nest earlier. They can nest later. Ideally, they aren't a protected species by any type of means. They're not endangered or anything like that, but they do have a hunting season. So outside of that, we can't do anything with maybe a traditional, form of action. But one of the things that we'll recommend you do is put some kind of cover around their nest. Say that they were in your garden bed up front by your house or something, or you're in front of your business. Even some of the orange construction fencing around there can make them feel safer, and they're not going to be as aggressive towards you.
Okay. So, but let them stay then, you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to be our first one. Say, hey, can you let it stay? Can we put
temporary,
some...
I mean, right, once they're family, but they will come back and nest each year in the same place, or do they?
No, I don't believe they will.
Okay, cool.
I don't believe they will. They're not like that, like those types of animals. But, putting something to make them feel a little bit safer will keep them from being aggressive towards you, which is ultimately the goal. Right. We don't mind that they're staying there, and a lot of people would enjoy having a pair of geese hatch some goslings out in front of their house or something like that. But give them some cover, whether that's putting some brush up or something like that. Give them some cover, make them feel a little safer.
Bales of hay, maybe put around it. And
there you go, some straw bales or something like that. Yeah, exactly. So there are also dogs that can be trained to patrol heavily trafficked areas for geese, and this can make geese feel uncomfortable in that area, and especially if you're in the beginning stages of them, they haven't laid their eggs yet or something like that. This can just deter them from laying eggs. Okay. So golf courses is a common one that people will use patrolling dogs for. Of course, that can be costly to a certain extent. That does cost money to have someone do that. Frightening or scare tactics can be used. So decoys of dead geese or dogs or coyotes and other devices can be deterrents. Scare tactics such as fireworks. Bangers is on the list, if anybody knows what that is. I mean, we play some banger tunes.
What is that? Or are you just that's what we used to get a
I'm
pan
assuming things that make
like
loud noises.
Pan and the wooden spoon.
Yeah, exactly. Go out there at 6:00 every day and bang your spoon around in circles. Yeah. Distress cries or alarms, they can deter them. But if it's a desirable enough area, they'll get used to it. They'll just say, you know what? I like this spot. I don't care about the radio speaker that's playing bad music or something over there. I'm going to sit right here. That has been seen to do that. Create a buffer zone along the lakeshore that has tall vegetation. If it has tall vegetation, there could be predators hiding in there. Geese are less likely to want to lay there and feel safe. They like to lay in areas that have big open areas so that they can see the possible predators coming their way. Yep. And then the final one, if you own an area that's, wetland or something like that and have a goose problem, there may be, especially if you're trying to establish some new grasses or stuff like that, there may be some fencing or wiring that you need to put around that area. So maybe if you've developed a new pond and you're trying to get grass to grow and the geese are coming over there and eating the new grass, because geese are a grazing animal. Right. They eat grass and water plants. That's what they eat. So you may need to get that established. You may need to take more extreme measures by putting a net or a fence around that area to get the geese to stay off of it. So the final one that I will mention is if they are becoming such a nuisance that you have just got to get rid of them, look for an NWCO, a nuisance wildlife control operator. A lot of your animal control, especially city animal control, will be able to take care of that animal. Again, you either need to contact somebody with a permit or you need to apply for a permit yourself before you can do all of these. And if they're becoming such a nuisance that it is a problem, that permit, while working with the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation, would allow you to capture, relocate, or even in some cases, humanely euthanize the animal if it was becoming such a nuisance. But again, only if you get the permit.
Right.
Yeah, you got to get the permit. And that's why they have a vetting process for this of, okay, is it really something that's a nuisance or are you just kind of a grumpy person? We also have some farmers that have wheat fields that get eaten up. There's actually been some studies done up farther north where geese will land on a 160-acre wheat field, and around the road, the yield is higher than what it is inside the middle of the field.
Wow.
Because
they're
geese
just in there eating away.
Exactly. So it can be an economic downturn as well. Right. One thing, if you're outside of town, you can take advantage of the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife's general hunting season of geese.
And when is that?
Yeah, November 6th through 28th and December 4th through February 13th. So we are currently in Canadian geese hunting season. So yeah, exactly. Who knows? Maybe there's some hunters who are, if it's a good enough spot, they may be willing to pay to come hunt.
Harvest them.
Exactly.
Right? You can eat the geese then?
Yes, certainly. There's plenty of recipes online. Yes,
it'd be pretty tasty, I think.
But overall, they are wildlife. They were here well before we were.
So if you can, just let them.
Yeah, if you can, let them be
for a little bit,
or use some of those deterring tactics, like having large grass around, or not having as quote unquote safe of a place for them to be around. If you got a dog in your backyard, they're probably not going to lay back there.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. So be careful, respect them, but there are some options if they do become a nuisance.
Always great information.
Exactly. So if you guys have any questions about that, you can certainly contact us at the OSU Extension Office. 580-362-3194 is our phone number. Or if you also have some questions about wildlife, the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation is a great source as well. I don't have their contact number in front of me, but I'm sure you can find them.
Search and find them. And do you know if we have a nuisance wildlife control operator in our county or in our area?
I believe all game wardens are. Okay. So in Oklahoma, anywhere has someone who can take care of that. Granted, I will say that is not their primary function to be a wildlife control operator, but they do sometimes have to do it. And then I think the city of Ponca City does have an animal control, and I'd be willing to bet that they have a permit to do that. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Shannon, for sharing some great information, as always, to our listeners.
Thank you so much.
And I look forward to seeing you next week.
See you.
Here's Tesla on KLOR.
101 Country, KPNC. That's Ryan Hurd and Maren Morris chasing after you. Real-life married couple.
Really?
Very believable.
What do you know?
Yes.
Gosh.
Usually that's not the case.
No, yeah, usually Dolly and Kenny Rogers, not a married couple.
Not a married couple.
Not a married couple.
Right? That's good. But Ryan and Maren, they happily married couple.
Very cool.
In fact, they go out and they do shows a lot of times
they're both
together.
very talented, too. That's
extremely.
Like
Yeah. Maren maybe a little more than Ryan.
Maybe. Exactly.
But that's not that it's a competition.
Yeah, usually the guy is the one marrying up,
Yeah,
so there you go.
I think that's what happened.
That's a fair
Exactly. Maren tolerates him. That's,
I think that goes with a lot of,
yeah, for sure.
They sound like they have a normal relationship.
Right. Well, it's 8:10, 20 degrees, some sunshine, and warmer weather on the horizon. Yes, indeed. Well, every Friday we are joined by the one and only Shannon Mallory with the Oklahoma State K County Cooperative Extension Service, and we always look forward to his visit. And because, number one, we always are in a position to learn something.
That's good.
But we do it in a fun way. And since your job is, don't tell me, K County Cooperative Extension Service Ag Educator.
Very more
close.
Than close enough.
Close
and he
enough?
didn't even look at the paper, guys.
I did not.
Yeah, he did not.
I want to see if I can get it right. So my entire life, when I see geese, and I say, "Oh, look, Canadian geese," I have been wrong.
Something exactly.
They're not called Canadian geese.
This is something that I learned today, like yesterday, researching this, making sure I got all the notes and stuff. They're Canada geese, not Canadian.
See,
Canada geese, and apparently our neighbors up north get in a little bit of an uproar about it.
So is it because, okay, they're Canada geese, so they're not necessarily native to Canada is why they're not Canadian geese? I'm thinking if you're a goose, okay,
if anybody can figure this out,
and you're from Canada and you're a goose and you fly down here because it's negative 38 in Canada and you want a little warmer weather, I'm going to call you Canadian geese, but I'd be wrong. And if you're a Canadian, we don't want you to get irate. We don't want to upset.
Please don't get upset.
We don't want to upset the Canada folk. They're very nice people, but this is one topic that really gets them
just a little fired up.
I'm
trying to think of something locally here that maybe gets people fired up a little bit. I don't know. Yeah, but and at first I thought, oh, okay, well maybe they're not Canadian citizens and they're just visitors in Canada.
Yeah.
But then why would you designate yourself a Canada goose if you're not from Canada? I don't know.
Right.
It's a mystery, folks.
Well, here's the deal. I enjoy seeing a flock of geese in their formations, and they're flying, and they're pretty. They're usually pretty. They're bigger birds. But here's the problem. They gather. They use the bathroom. They eat our plants. They come around. Sometimes they get aggressive.
More than sometimes. They're definitely aggressive animals.
I mean, they're really kind of pushy. It's like, hey, you're a guest in our area. Kind of. You could act a little better, but they don't get it. It's Canadian.
They're not. See, maybe this is a confusion of why they're called Canadian geese.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Canada
geese. See, you're getting it wrong too.
You're getting it wrong too. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they really can become a nuisance.
A nuisance, exactly. That's the word, nuisance.
So what do we do?
Yeah, so there's multiple things we can do. Probably the most common problem occurs in March and April when the pairs, males and females, nest together. And you'll find there'll be a female set off to the side, and the male, anytime anyone, dog, animal, person, cat, gets close, they go on the attack and go after people.
Really?
Yes. So, what we usually suggest to people there, because there are some people who are like, if they just weren't right there, relocation isn't going to work for a nest. They're going to want to be there, and relocation isn't going to work for a nest. So you do need to probably, the best course of action is to just put a little bit of a fence around them.
Okay.
Make sure that they feel safe. The safer they feel, the less that male goose is going to feel like it needs to defend the nest. Okay. And they're going to hopefully become less aggressive. So if they're in your front garden bed, one of the things we suggest, go buy some of that construction fencing, that orange construction fencing. Kind of put it around their nest over there.
Really?
Get a couple people, because they won't like you putting the fence up initially,
right?
But put a fence up around them.
So we watch this happen every March and April.
Typically, it could be a month off on either of them.
A male and a female goose will create a nest, and then the male will defend the nest.
I've seen them nest on parking lot islands. Like,
really?
At your big stores and stuff like that. They'll nest in those. So they're not the greatest in picking a place to nest.
Yeah.
Little flawed logic there.
Right. And they'll get upset if you get close.
Exactly.
And you don't really mean them any harm, but the male goose is like, hey,
yeah,
you can see we got something going on.
Trying to raise a family over
right,
here.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. All right, and then the next one usually that we see is flocks of them. Will flock in an area. Geese graze. They eat grass. Mm-hmm. So your yard, your golf courses, your wheat field that you just planted, farmers, is just a buffet for them.
I bet it is.
So sometimes we run into that, and I mean like you said, the scat, the poop. Right. Can be a little bit of a problem. Just them being around can be a problem. So there's a few things. There are dogs that are trained to patrol those areas. A golf course could hire a dog,
right,
or to walk around. Yeah, and they're not even mean necessarily to the geese. They're just a known predator that is kind of making that area feel less safe, so they won't congregate there.
And so the Canada geese is like, okay, let's pick a different area.
Well, let's mosey. Let's book it. Yeah.
There's a dog.
Yeah. And then there are also some scare tactics that you can use.
This is what I wanted to ask you about, because this sounds really, really fun, actually. Firecrackers, bangers, whatever those are, distress cries, alarms. These are all different things that you can do.
Yes. So we can put those out there. Now, granted, it may be an area that's residential, so you've got to keep it to below a certain decibel or something like that. Too, I'll tell you,
I've had some neighbors that they don't make that consideration, but okay.
You're over here with your decibel meter. It's getting a little high over here.
Really?
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, you can use these noisemakers, these distress things, these things to make it just kind of uncomfortable in the area. Right. I will say, if your place is good enough of a place for them to stick around, you got to do a lot to get them away with one of these tactics.
Right.
The other one, which we highly suggest, because it's kind of just a nature type thing, not really causing any major harm or anything, creating a buffer zone around your lake shores or ponds that are taller vegetation. If there's taller vegetation, there is the perception that maybe there's a predator there for those geese, and they're not so keen on
fear of the unknown.
Exactly, fear of the unknown.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the final one is if you're maybe you built a new pond on your property, or you're doing a renovation around a certain area, and the geese are eating the newly sprouted plants that you put in there.
Boy, that's frustrating.
Yeah, what you can do is go ahead and protect those plants by putting fencing around, or maybe something a little bit more extreme.
And they honor the fencing. They're like, they put a fence around that. So.
You got to keep them out. Whatever you got to do to keep them out, so that plant gets grown up and a little bit bigger on there. So,
one final question: can we eat these things?
I'm glad you asked, Sean. Yes.
So
if you're outside of city limits, you can take advantage of Oklahoma's general hunting seasons on Canada geese. See, I'm doing it again.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, on Canada geese. Dates that are open for that. Again, you do need to be outside of city limits to do this, and on your on an area that you're allowed to hunt and be properly licensed. There's a lot of caveats for this.
Sure.
November 6th through 28th is a hunting season, and then December 4th through February 13th.
But March and April, when they're the biggest nuisance.
Well, they're nesting that time. We do want them to nest, so that we can hunt them next year. So that's kind of the
All right.
Yeah, that's the mindset. But that's the time to hunt. And then if they get to be such a bad nuisance, do look up NWCOs, Nuisance Wildlife Control Operators. I believe all game wardens are nuisance control wildlife operators. A lot of city animal control have a nuisance wildlife permit, and then you yourself can attain one as well. But again, attain the permit before you try to take care of the nuisance animal.
All right.
So please, do look into that and make sure you have that permit before you go and do something. But
Canada geese.
Oof.
Canada geese, beautiful and disgusting, all at the same time.
Yeah.
Hey, if you want to find out more, Oklahoma State K County Cooperative Extension Services all over the socials, as the youngins say. So you'll find them, and you can go to the Facebook page And you can also give Shannon and Mallory a call up at the courthouse. Are you still in the...
We are still in the basement. Hopefully before the end of February, we're going to be moved in. 580-362-3194. We'll announce when we're moving. I think it's going to be a 2 or 3 day move and stuff. So we'll be out of commission for a little bit. But
yeah.
We'll be back.
You know what? I'm going to assume they're doing the best they can to get you in there as quickly as possible.
Yes, they are.
All right. Shannon, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
It's 8:20, 20 degrees.